Hello everyone and welcome back to this little video series on the AR wing and how it's set up. I am making a short video series so that they can all these videos can stay grouped together. And in the previous video we did an introduction of the channel and what I'm doing here with this airplane. And for this video we're going to be talking about the airframe. I do have other videos planned where we're going to cover some of the electronics which I've got here, the radio control, how it's put together and set up. But for this video, I'm going to be talking now about the airframe. I will point out a couple of things, but I mostly won't talk about the electronics on those pieces because they're going to be covered in their separate videos. And I'll just tell you about the airframe because I ended up making a few changes to it that I hope improve performance and some that were just necessary because of repairs, etc. So I'll just cover those real quick. I'm going to try not to keep the videos too long. I'll try to make them a little bit shorter so that they're easier to follow. Anyway, so as far as the airframe goes, the first thing we're going to talk about is the fuselage. This is the AR wing, and I'll talk about some of the mods that I've done to this. The first one and the most obvious is that I've taken the foam, which looked like this when I first got the plane, and I put some covering on it. Now this covering is super basic, and by the way, you know, I've loved this plane for a while, like I mentioned in my first video, so you're gonna see signs of wear and tear. We'll ignore those for now. Just, you know that I have repaired these a few times. It's a very tough model, and even from some crashes that I thought it wasn't gonna come back, it came back and it's still in fairly good shape. But going back to the covering, I'm gonna show you what I use for covering. I have it right here. And this is actually packing tape. They sell the sheets and rolls of covering, and I meant to get one of those, but I haven't. And in the meantime, I've been using this tape. I really like it. What you want to do is you want to go to the Home Depot and find the cheapest, thinnest tape. This to me is an unknown brand because I did at some point buy the really nice tape from Costco. But what I found is that the thicker tape actually it's not as good as covering because it's heavier, thicker, and heavier. Well, mostly that's the main thing. But this one, not only is it light, but it also conforms into the bends and the curves and things like that a little bit better. Still not perfect. You can do a better job than I did in covering. But that's the tape that I use for quote-unquote laminating my plane. It still provides a good amount of protection. It helps with crashes and bumps because it provides that skin for surface. Anyway, so that's what I did. And, you know, not everything can be shaped perfectly. I do have a few wrinkles, but I go mostly for function rather than, you know, the cosmetic appeal. This tape is something that at first I wasn't going to use, but I needed it because when I did repairs, it gave back a lot of strength to the foam. Okay, so that's number one. I want to show, I'll take it by parts, and I want to show this lid where I mounted the antenna for my video transmitter. We'll cover all the different pieces, but basically what I did to attach it is that I used little pieces of PVC. I had some square PVC pipe for downspout gutters, and I use that. Sometimes I also use gift cards or any other plastic that can just help prevent the zip ties that I use from digging into the foam. And when you have a video transmitter like this, it gets really hot, so I put it next to that air vent. And I went to Thingiverse and I found this little scoop that works for the AR wing, and there's one other, I think it's the Rebel. I forget the name of the other plane that it works for. But it works really nice for this. It's the perfect size, and instead of just having this was just a flat foam and the hole that went in there, but now with a little scoop it brings a little bit more air, and you can almost see that right in there is the video transmitter, and the airflow hits that first, which is one of the components that gets the hottest. So that's really the modifications that I made to this. Now if you look at the fuselage, this is pretty much stock. They offer 3 options. I use the one with a hole in the middle because I have a run cam too, again, which we'll cover later, but it sits in here real nice. What I will cover, because it's pretty much become part of the fuselage, is this mount for it, which it came with two little Velcro straps, thin, although, long enough that I was able to actually cut holes and run the straps all the way to the bottom of the fuselage. This is the version 2 of the AR wing, has this protective plastic plate that broke a little bit, but it's still providing better protection than nothing. As you can see, it's had some landings in the grass, so it's actually stained green a little bit, but I took the straps, ran it from the bottom over the top into the mount, back down again, and when I brought it out, what I actually did is I tightened it, and then I pushed it inside. I think I used like popsicle sticks like this, or I used something to just kind of push them in there. And so the end of the strap is also in the foam and it's not going anywhere. This thing is very solid in there. We'll talk a little bit more about balancing, but for now I'll show you that, these are the magnets for holding on the, nose cover on. But I needed more weight, so I actually ended up finding where this thing went into the foam at the bottom of here, and as you can see, it's still there because these are actually nails. These are nails that I used to add a little bit of weight to the nose. I'm gonna try to rearrange components to see if I can remove some of that extra weight, because it took a lot of nose weight to balance. Basically 2 nails in here and some lead. That's lead from balancing tires. So that's what it took to really kind of balance this. Anyway, moving on to other pieces of the fuselage. This is where, whenever I have a crash, I actually try to find all the pieces of foam, but this one I just could not find. So that one is missing, and you can see, there was a repair that almost cracked my entire fuselage in half. But you can barely see any other cracks or repairs. There's another one here. But if you look at it from the side, it's sometimes really hard to tell. I left that piece of tape in there just to reinforce a little bit. But the fuselage has been repaired a few times. Here, this piece is also the result of a repair because the motor once came off and the prop actually chewed up some of the foam. So I cut off about a centimeter, 10 millimeter worth of the rear, and I made this 3D printed part, which I actually just recently replaced because I did also have another landing that actually tore the motor from the mount to just be attached directly to this. And so what I've done now is I designed this other piece and I 3D printed it, which goes in between the mount and the motor. I'm hoping to give it something else to break, so that if it breaks again, I can just print and replace these parts instead of the whole tail of the plane like I had to do this last time. I did install some LEDs in the back, red LEDs, so it looks like it's really cooking. I have a little screen that I use with my Autopilot. That's become part of the fuselage now, so I'll just mention that it's there. Excuse me. I put a ventilation hole here at the bottom, so the airflow will go this way, and I'm hoping that will help draw some of that hot air out. Also put this scoop in here, and the motor has these other 2 vents. This one is used up partially by the motor wires. The motor, I'll just quickly mention it. It's a T motor made for racing wings, FPV WRA. It's the 2310, 2200 kV. I'm reading it through the camera. So anyway, the only other thing that I did is I cut a hole for an altitude sensor, which I use for autonomous landings. And that's pretty much it. Worth mentioning is that it's got some holes where you route the cables from the wings, and that's how they go into the fuselage. I'm using it to route the wires for the screen. And that's really it for the main piece of the fuselage. So, as you can see, it doesn't look like it's had so much done, but at the end of the day, there's a few pieces to talk about when looking just at the fuselage. I'll just quickly go over the wings. The reason I have this aluminum foil tape is because I was getting some jitter on the servos with some of the long-range transmitter radios, 900 megahertz. I do have a GPS unit in here with a compass. The wires I routed through the inside of the wing. there's this part of foam here that actually connects to where the servo is mounted and provides a channel. The little cover was not accessible, but when you start digging, if you dig, for example, this space for the GPS, I was able to do it so that I actually hit that channel, and I was able to get the wires out through here, and so that's what I've got. Another thing that I did to both wings is this little groove here. What it is an extra carbon spar, and that is about 5 millimeters wide by just a millimeter thick, and I inserted it vertically into the wing, you know, kind of like that. And that provides a lot of rigidity. So I have one here, and I actually have another one under this tape. You can kind of see a ridge. So there's two, and that to prevent the wing from bending, because it was actually a little bit more flexy than I wanted it. The only other thing that I did is I added an LED. The LED also got its own little wire over here, and then I just brought it to where the servo is, and also stuck it in there through the channel, so it comes out the end of the wing like that. And both wings have been reinforced with a carbon fiber, and both wings have an LED. So I'll show the other wing real quick. Again, the LED, and that's that little channel and the two carbon spars. The other difference between the right wing and the left one is that this one has a pitot speed sensor. And what I did is, when I was doing the aluminum channel, the carbon reinforcement spar here, I actually just made it so that it would go under that, then the spar, and then put the covering back on. I put a sticker here from my friend Pete that has this shop, Wreck Drones in Arizona, so shout out to him. And so that's my speed sensor. And again, I got the cables to come out through that main little port that the wing routes all the wires through. I got my FPV camera, and this one does have another cutout for wires that come out the front. I think that's really it for the fuselage. Like I said, this is very tough foam. This wrinkle, for example, was actually a really bad break in my wing. I did not replace this tape, so you can see the evidence of the crash. And it kind of broke a piece here, but you know, if you put the foam under warm water, and try to let it come back to shape, after a few days it was really dry, and then I just glued it back. And I've used foam tack for all the repairs. That stuff is not cheap, but it's been super good. This wing also took a really bad crash, and actually this wing was before I put those carbon spars in, and it nearly tore apart. Like literally the wing just went like this, and you could see all this side of the wing had spread open, and I had a big crack here. And again, just foam tack, kind of bring it back into shape, and you know, now it's not that bad. It's not even, you know, I can't really tell that there was anything there, and you know, the wing's still fairly straight. So anyway, that's that. I did end up gluing the wingtips. A lot of people talk about, you know, they're just held by a couple of little screws, which are here in these little holes. And I did break a little bit of the wingtip already, so I may try to repair that. I don't know, but we'll see. So that's as far as the airframe goes. If you want to hear anything more, or you have any suggestions, did I do anything wrong, let me know. The next thing I'm going to cover are going to be just the electronics that go in there. So that'll be the next video. Thank you.